Your ex was a demon. And what they hid behind that smile, those late night texts that I've never met anyone like you, that kind of energy. What they buried so deep you almost believe it wasn't there, is about to hit you like a wave you didn't see coming. And honestly, it's going to shock you. Really, really shock you. Not because it's dramatic, not because it's some movie plot twist, but because it's been right in front of you this whole time and you couldn't see it because they didn't want to see it. They didn't want you to see it. They needed you blind. They needed you confused. They needed you second guessing your own gut until your gut stopped talking to you altogether. And now that you are out, now that the fog is finally lifting, you are starting to realize this wasn't just a bad breakup. This wasn't just we grew apart. This wasn't just they had issues. No. This was something else, something that felt wrong in your bones, but you couldn't name. Something that made you feel like you were losing your mind while simultaneously losing yourself. And what they hid. It's not just the cheating, it's not just the lies, it's not just the gaslighting. It's the fact that they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that, and they enjoyed it. Have you ever sit there, maybe in the middle of the night, maybe in the shower, maybe driving home from work, and suddenly a memory hits you, a comment they made, a look they gave, a moment that felt off, but you dismissed it. And now it's crystal clear. Yeah. Like someone turned on the lights in a room you have been stumbling through in the dark and for months. That's the shock. That's the thing they hid. They hid their intention. They hid their coldness beneath warmth. They hid their contempt beneath compliments. They hid their need to control, to manipulate you beneath words like, I just want what's best for you. I just want what's best for you. And you bought it. Of course you bought it. You are a good person. You show up for people. You don't assume the worst. You give the benefit of the doubt. You think they are stressed or they are going through something, or maybe I'm being too sensitive. And that's exactly what they counted on. They counted on your goodness. They counted on your forgiveness. They counted on your desire to see the best in people. And they used it like a weapon. Let's get real about what that actually looked like. In the beginning, they were obsessed with you, for sure, yeah. They not just interested, not just attract, obsessed. They wanted to know everything. They wanted to be around you all the time. They mirrored your energy, your interests, your values. They told you that you were different. You were different, that you were special, that you'd never felt this way before. They'd never felt. And you felt it too. It was electric. It was intense. It felt like destiny. But here's the thing about intensity that comes on that fast. It's not always passion. Sometimes it's a trap. Sometimes it's a person who has studied you like a blueprint, learning what you crave, what you fear, what you need to hear. So they can become exactly what you want. And then when you are fully in, when you have opened your heart and your life and your bedroom and your bank account, and your future plans to them, they start to change slowly. So slowly you almost don't notice. A little comment here, a little criticism there, a little withdrawal of affection when you don't do exactly what they want. And you start to adjust. You start to shrink. You start to apologize for things that are not your fault. You start to believe that if you could just be a little more patient, a little more understanding, a little more loving, they'd go back to being the person you fell for. But that person never existed. That's uncomfortable to hear. Yeah, that person was a costume. That person was bait. And what they hid the fact that they were never in love with you. They were in love with what you gave them. They were in love with how you made them feel. They were in love with your attention, your validation, your energy, your secret energy. They were in love with the way you lit up when they walked in the room. Yeah, they were in love with having someone who would do anything for them. But they were not in love with you. They didn't see you. They didn't know you. They didn't care to know you. They didn't care to know you. And they knew your weaknesses. They knew your triggers. They knew exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction. But they didn't know your soul. They didn't honor your heart. They didn't protect your peace. And that's the part that's going to shock you. Not because it's new, but because you are finally allowing yourself to admit it. You have known it. You have known it for a long time. You just didn't want to believe it. Because believing it meant accepting that someone you loved, someone you trusted the most, someone you gave your whole self to, was using you. And that's really, really uncomfortable and painful to hear. That is a devastating thing to accept. Think about the moments you pushed aside. The times they made you feel small, the times they laughed at your dreams, the times they dismissed your feelings, the times they made you feel like you were too much or not enough, the times they punished you with silence, the times they made you beg for their time, their attention, their affection. That was the mask sleeping. That was the truth peeking through. And every time you made excuses for them, every time you defended them to your friends, mutual friends, every time you told yourself it was just a rough patch, you were helping them hide. You were covering for them. You were doing the work of protecting their image, their face, while they were busy destroying yours. You didn't even realize it, because you were so focused on making it work. You were so focused on being a good partner. You were so focused on proving your love. Meanwhile, Meanwhile, they were focused on controlling you. They were focused on keeping you off balance, keeping you small. They were focused on making sure you never felt secure enough to live. This is where it gets really interesting. Because what they hid isn't just about the relationship itself. It's about what happens now that you are out. Now that you have walked away. Now that the spell has been broken. You are starting to see things clearly. And it's almost overwhelming. It's like you are looking at your own life from the outside for the first time. You are realizing how much energy you spent trying to fix something that was never going to work. How much time you wasted precious time you wasted on someone who was never going to change. How much of yourself you gave away to someone who was never going to give anything back. And that realization is painful. It's grief. It's anger. It's shame. But it's also freedom. Because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Once you know the truth, you cannot pretend anymore. And the shock isn't just about what they did. It's about what you are finally willing to acknowledge. It's about the moment you stop protecting them and start protecting yourself. It's about the moment you stop asking, why did they do this? And start asking, why did I accept it for so long? And that's not a blame question. It's not about shaming yourself. That's important. That's about waking up. That's about recognizing that you were the one who stayed. You were the one who believed. You were the one who hoped. And that's not a weakness. That's actually a strength. Because it means you are capable of love. You are capable of love. They know. It means you are capable of commitment. It means you are capable of showing up for someone. The problem wasn't your capacity to love. The problem was where you poured it. You poured it into a void. You poured it into someone who saw it as a resource to be extracted rather than a gift to be cherished. And that's the thing they hid. That's the thing they didn't want you to see. They didn't want you to know that they viewed you as the source, a source of attention, a source of money, a source of status, a source of comfort, a source of whatever they needed at the moment. And when you stopped being useful, when you started asking for reciprocation, when you started needing something in return, they made you feel like you were the problem, like you were so demanding, like you were needy, like you were demanding, like you were the one who was too much. And you believed it at first. You believed it. You believed it because you trusted them. You believed it because you didn't want to believe they were capable of that level of manipulation. But they were. And now you know. You always know. And so what exactly did they hide? They hid the contempt. They hid the fact that they didn't respect you. They hid their envy of your success. They hid their pleasure of your pain. In your pain. They hid their satisfaction when you failed. They hid their relief when you stopped trying. They hid their indifference behind the performance of caring. They hid the fact that they were actively working against you while pretending to be on your side. They hid the fact that they didn't want you to grow, because your growth would threaten their control. They hid the fact that they didn't want you to be happy, because your happiness would mean you didn't need them. They hid the fact that they were never going to marry you or build a future with you or love you the way you deserved. They were just a passing time. They were just using you until something better came along. And that's the part that really stings. Not just that they lied, but that they were never intended to stay. But here's the thing about all of this. Here's the thing that's going to shock you even more. Now that you have walked away, now that you have healed enough to look back without crying, constantly crying, now that you have rebuilt yourself from the ground up, you are realizing something else. You are realizing that what they hid is also what saved you. Because if they had been honest, if they had shown you who they really were from the start, you would have walked away from the start. You would have learned what you learned. Or you wouldn't have learned what you learned. You wouldn't have seen what they were capable of. You wouldn't have discovered how strong you are. You wouldn't have uncovered parts of yourself you didn't know existed. And you wouldn't have faced the dark, the demon, and came out the other side. You wouldn't have grown. You wouldn't have transformed. And that's the part that's going to shock you right now. The part that's going to make you stop and catch your breath. That demon, the one who wrecked your life, the one who left you in pieces on the kitchen floor at 2 a.m., the one who made you question your very existence, your own sanity. They were actually, and I know this is going to sound impossible, they were actually part of your awakening. I know. I went through that. Yeah, that sounds insane. That sounds like something you'd say only after too much wine and a late night spiral. But hear me out. Sometimes the universe has to send you something so destructive, so deceptive, so heartbreaking that you are forced to finally protect yourself. Sometimes the only way to learn to stand up for yourself is by being knocked down so hard that you have no choice but to get back up. Sometimes you have to be completely broken open before you can be rebuilt. And that's not a blessing, okay? Let's be clear about that. It's not a blessing. It's a reckoning. It's a brutal, painful, ugly reckoning. But it's also a door. It's a door that you couldn't have opened any other way. Because you were too nice. You were too trusting. You were too willing to see the best in people. And the universe said, okay, we need to teach you something. And it's not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a demon wrapped in a beautiful package. And you are going to fall for them. And it's going to destroy you. And then, and only then, you are going to stop being naive. And that's the shock. That's the thing, the heat that you are just now understanding. They were not a punishment. They were a wake-up call. They were not your downfall. They were your lesson. They were not your enemy. I know it sounds crazy. They were your teacher. And I'm not saying you should thank them. No, absolutely no, not. I'm not saying you should forgive them or let them back in or feel sorry for them. I'm saying you should see them for what they were. A mirror. They showed you what you were tolerating. They showed you what you were accepting. They showed you where you had abandoned yourself. And that's painful. That's deeply, deeply painful. Because it means that on some level you allowed it. You don't hate me for that, for these words. You participated in your own diminishment. You said yes when you should have said no. You stayed when you should have left. You gave when you should have withheld. And it's not about blame. That's about recognition. That's about seeing yourself clearly for the first time. And once you see it, you cannot go back. Once you understand that you allowed someone to treat you that way, you start to set boundaries. You start to trust your gut. You start to walk away at the first red flag. You stop making excuses for people who don't deserve it. You stop giving the benefit of the doubt to people who haven't earned it. You stop shrinking yourself to make someone else feel big, yeah. You stop over-explaining yourself to someone who's pretending not to understand. You stop proving your worth. Yeah, you stop proving your worth to someone who's never going to acknowledge it. You stop chasing someone who's already left. You stop begging for the bare minimum. You stop waiting for them to change. You stop hoping for a future that was never going to happen. You just stop. And then you start. You start investing in yourself. You start loving yourself the way you wanted them to love you. You start showing up for yourself the way you showed up for them. You start filling your own cup. You start setting your own standards. You start building a life that doesn't revolve around anyone else's approval. And that's the thing that's going to shock them. Not what they hid, but what you find. What you find or found. Because when the dust settles, when the tears dry, when the anger fades, you are going to look in the mirror and see someone you haven't seen in a long time. Someone who is stronger. Someone who is wiser. Someone who is not going to let anyone anyone treat them like that ever again. Someone who knows their worth, someone who knows their value, someone who knows that they are not a source to be extracted. They are a person to be cherished and honored. And that's the real shock. Not what they hid, actually, but what you discovered. You discovered yourself, you discovered your resilience, you discovered your capacity to heal, you discovered your ability to rise from the ashes. You discovered that you didn't need them. You never needed them. You were whole before them. You are whole after them. They didn't break you. They revealed you. They revealed parts of you that didn't exist, didn't know existed. They revealed your strength. They revealed your courage. They revealed your persistence. They revealed your determination. And that's the thing they absolutely never saw coming. They thought they could destroy you. Yeah, they thought they could use you up and throw you away. They thought they could walk away and leave you in pieces. But you didn't stay in pieces. You put yourself back together. You rebuilt, you rose. And not only did you survive, you thrived. You became someone who is no longer available for that kind of treatment. You became someone who is no longer vulnerable to that kind of deception. You became someone who can spot a demon from a mile away. And that's power. That's real power. And that's the thing that will absolutely shock you right now. Not the demon's tricks, not the demon's lies, not the demon's mask, but your own resilience, your own strength, your own capacity to turn pain into power. That's the real story. That's the real ending. And you wrote it, not them. You. So sit with that for a moment. Let it sink in. You are not the same person who fell for their lies. You are not the same person who made excuses for them. You are not the same person who begged for scraps of attention. You are not the same person who questioned your own sanity, your own sanity. Yeah, you are not the same person who felt like you were losing yourself. You are someone new, someone stronger, someone wiser, someone who knows their worth. And that is absolutely shocking. Not because it's surprising, not because it's surprising that you made it, but because you didn't think you would. You didn't. Let's be honest, you didn't think you had it in you. You didn't think you could survive that kind of devastation. But you did. And now you are here. Now you see them for what they really were. Not just a bad ex, not just a mistake, not just a regret, but a lesson. A painful, brutal, necessary lesson. And the thing they hid, the thing they didn't want you to see, they wanted you to believe you were the problem. They wanted you to believe you were broken. They wanted you to believe you couldn't make it without them. They wanted you to believe you were nothing. But look at you. Just look at you. You are everything. You are everything they couldn't see. You are everything they couldn't appreciate. You are everything they couldn't handle. And that is the truth. That is the real truth. And that truth is going to shock you. It's going to shock you. It's going to wake you up. And once you see it, you are never going to unsee it. You are never going to forget it. You are never going to let anyone make you feel small again. Because now you know. Now you know who you are. And now you know what they were. And there is no going back from them, from that.